What's up, Fragrant World? Welcome back to another Stay Fresh production. My name is Justin Copeland, and on this channel, Stay Fresh Productions, we talk about all things fragrance related. Any interest in that kind of content, you are in the right place. Make sure you join the Fresh Squad today by subscribing. Hit that subscribe button. Improve, enhance, elevate your freshness. You'll feel it, others will smell it. I'm really thrilled to revisit this topic. It's always fun to revisit every now and then. We're talking about underrated fragrances. These are fragrances in my collection that I've come across in my journey that I don't see a whole lot of people talking about. I don't see a lot of limelight. People do express their, their appreciation for these scents, but they pale in comparison to some others. And I'm taking a slightly different approach for this topic. Instead of just presenting my underrated fragrances saying you need to like this, you need to like that, I'm gonna pair them up with other fragrances from their respective houses that do tend to get more attention. So I'm gonna show you fragrances that you probably have heard of or have tried or might even own as perhaps one of the reasons why the underrated fragrances are indeed underrated. They're overshadowed by these more well-known, more popular fragrances from these houses. So I got 6 pairs here. I want to point out that the fragrances that I'm saying are more popular in each pairing. I'm not saying these are overhyped. I'm not saying these are bad. I'm not saying you need to overlook these in lieu of these. I'm just presenting it as, again, perhaps a reason why these picks I've chosen are underrated. Let's dive right into it. Okay, so this first pairing is interesting. Wow, this is a great scent. Beautiful fragrance. It's been around for a little while from this house. Again, you probably own it, you probably love it. We're talking about Jubilation 25. Now, I'm not saying this is underrated. Again, this is the one that's pretty well known. I could have chosen Reflection Man, but this is probably a close second, maybe third if we're gonna throw Interlude Man in there. The rankings don't matter, but basically this is one of the most popular fragrances from the house. And as a result, there's a few others that might be overlooked. Now, granted, there are a few others that I don't have yet that I really want to get, like Beloved Man or Dia Man or Honor Man. Those are fragrances that are not talked about that much, and I do want to check those out because I am loving the house of Amouage. But the underrated fragrance that I'm choosing from Amouage that could be overshadowed by something like this is Overture. Now, there's a few reasons why this might be overshadowed, and one of the biggest ones is that it is, I believe, a Harrods exclusive. Technically, it's only available in the UK, which obviously makes distribution very difficult, so accessibility goes way down. I ended up buying this from someone who got it from overseas, so I had to pay a pretty penny for it, but I love this stuff. And this, believe it or not, is one of the very few boozy centric fragrances that Amouage makes. I went through their catalog. They have over 100 fragrances that they've put out to market over the past couple decades, and I believe only about 5 of them have a boozy nuance, only maybe 2 or 3 of those actually having the booziness as the centerpiece, this being one of them. Its counterpart, Overture Woman, being another one, and Sunshine Man having a pretty prominent brandy note. Booze is an interesting and kind of unique component in the Amouage family here. And I do believe that these can kind of have a similar scent profile. I would say they can be used for similar occasions. They're both kind of on the dark and rich side of things, on the complex side of things. Something that you want to wear as a statement maker, something that's going to make you stand out. But I do recommend checking out Overture. I'm going to have links to any kind of samples or decants that I can find down below. From the house of Tom Ford, a fragrance that once again many of you guys probably already have and own and love, or maybe even hate. This is Oud Wood. This is a classic. This is a gorgeous fragrance, and it is quite hyped. I'm still on the fence if I think it's worth the hype. It's safe for now. We'll see if it makes an upcoming video in that series later. But a fragrance that I do think it doesn't get quite as much attention. Granted, I think it has been discontinued, but it's still available out there. This is Tobacco Oud. I wore this last night to a gig and actually got some good feedback on it. It smells so wonderful. It's a little bit more polarizing than Oud Wood. It's a little less safe. It's a little bit more outlandish, I would say. This is a boozy based scent with dry earthy tobacco with that dry woody nuance that's a little bit on the dirty side of things, but overall warm, spicy, a little sweet, boozy, dry and woody. Kind of a boss scent. Again, perhaps a little bit more challenging than Oud Wood. This is a great entry into the collection, but I do think you should check out Tobacco Oud if you have not. You guys can fight me on this, but arguably I'd say the most hyped fragrance from this collection, from the L'Homme Ideal collection from Guerlain, I think is the Eau de Parfum. I think this might be the most hyped. It's a toss up between this and the Cologne. They're really close, but in the context of the fragrance I've chosen as my underrated, this one definitely goes more hand in hand because they are closer in scent profile. So while the Eau de Parfum might be one of these staples, one of the poster children of the collection, I do think you should check out the L'Intense, which can easily be overshadowed by this one. This is my favorite from the collection. I've said that this takes that slightly creamy, sweet almond-like, DNA with a bit of that cherry vibe, but it makes it quite spicy. I think there's chili pepper and there's also a bit of a smokiness. It's just a drier, warmer, slightly sweeter, less fresh experience, not quite as leathery as this, I would say, and also actually not quite as sweet as this. This is a darker version of this. I love this stuff. The newer bottles will look slightly different. They'll be more transparent, so don't be alarmed. This is an older style, but still recommending this one. Still relatively inexpensive. I'll have links down below. Moving right along, these fragrances are from the same house, but not from the same collection, but they are both flankers to their originals, which came out earlier on in the 1990s. They have both kind of been seen to really elevate their respective collections, but one is definitely taking precedence over the other. Pacha de Cartier, gorgeous fragrance, nowhere near overhyped or hyped honestly, but definitely overshadowing another fantastic fragrance from the house, which is Declaration Parfum. This one does not get quite as much attention as the Pacha. Both are awesome. I recommend both. They're both different. They're not all that comparable in terms of their scent profiles, but they are comparable in terms of when I would recommend wearing them. They are on the darker, sweeter, richer side of things. They are going to be better for the cooler weather. They're going to be better for the evening time when you want to dress up, be a little bit more high profile. Both totally different personalities for that occasion. So if you have the Pacha de Cartier, I do recommend checking out Declaration. Again, different beast altogether. You gotta like cumin. There is kind of a spicy funk to it in addition to some beautiful cardamom, some bitter orange, some leather. It's rich and spicy and sweet and warm, maybe a little resinous as well. Both fantastic, but do check this one out if you've been sleeping on it. Okay, so this house in particular is nowhere near as popular as other niche houses, but it is a beautiful, relatively up and coming Parisian brand known as Teque Cabinet. I'd say probably their most popular fragrance to date has to be Teque Cabinet, which is a gorgeous fragrance composed by Cécile Zarokian. To my nose, this smells like a cinnamon vanilla latte. It's warm, it's milky, it's spicy, it's sweet. There's vanilla, maybe caramel or something like that. Absolutely a delicious fragrance. Some might say it leans feminine. I think it's perfectly unisex. But another fragrance from this particular collection from Teque Cabinet, this is from their original collection, that does not get much limelight, might lean a little bit more on the masculine side of things if there are some men who are looking for some of their offerings that they could wear. I do recommend Barkhane. This stuff wowed me when I first smelled it. The best way I can describe this, it's like a desert gourmand. It smells almost edible in a way. There's a sweet richness to it, but there's this dustiness. I smell it and I think of like I'm out on some sand dunes in the desert. There's an arid quality to the scent. It is dry, but there's a sweet balsamic quality to it as well. You have a little bit of this curry vibe. I think there's curry tree, which adds this interesting culinary quality, but it really helps to kind of balance out the sweetness, gives it a lot of depth. There's a woodiness to this fragrance. It is simply elegant. I do think it does kind of function in the same way. They're both on the sweet, rich side of things. This is a little bit more casual, I would say. Barkhane is a little bit more formal, but I think it could function as a signature scent in the cooler weather just fine. Gorgeous stuff and definitely worth checking out if you haven't. That is Barkhane from Teque Cabinet. Okay, and finally, probably one of the most talked about fragrances from this house, from Raja Parfums, one of the easiest entry-level fragrances for a lot of people getting into the house has got to be Elysium. I could still recommend Elysium to this day. This is a great scent, really easy to wear, very well composed. There's a bit of a complexity to it, but it is quite a simple fragrance. This is a really easy to throw on scent, very fresh, citrusy, juniper berry. There's a bitter freshness. It's also a little bit fruity and it's woody, and it just has a little bit of everything in there. Kind of a blue fragrance, but it's very high quality stuff. But one that can easily get overlooked. They often get compared to each other. I think people say they smell alike. They have similar facets, but they're completely different personalities to me. But one I do recommend checking out, and one that might be my favorite from the house currently, has got to be Oligarch. I talk about this one often. Also a citrusy, juniper berry, kind of, you know, dry, woody scent, but simply stunning. I think it's a little bit more grown up than Elysium. This is more versatile perhaps in terms of like people in their 20s would find it appealing, people in their 50s and upward find it appealing. This one is perhaps a little tiny bit more mature, and it has a little bit more presence, so you got to be more confident. Nonetheless, I recommend everyone check this out. If you want to smell a little bit different, this is a stunning fragrance. I will speak its praises all the time. This is a great, powerful, fresh, and unique fragrance that is going to help you stand out. So do check out Oligarch if you haven't. More people need to be talking about this stuff. That's going to do it for me. Those are my 6 underrated picks, at least this time around. I would love to know what you think of these fragrances, if you've tried any of them, whether it be the more popular ones of the pairing or the underrated ones of the pairing. I want to know what your thoughts are. I want to know if there's any one fragrance that you believe is criminally underrated that you don't see any talk about, especially here on YouTube. Maybe I can get my hands on it, get my nose on it, and maybe I can help shed some light on it as well. If you like the video, please like the video. It helps me out so much with my visibility across YouTube. Once again, join the Fresh Squad by subscribing. Why would you not want to increase your freshness? It's completely free. You could always change your mind later for whatever reason, but you might as well hit that button while we're still here because the video is almost over. Nonetheless, I want to thank you so much for tuning in. Peace. I'll see you in the next one.